After 1,000 hours in Risk of Rain 2, it's time to rank all the legendary items in the game. Make sure to subscribe to see each rarity ranked in future videos and let me know your thoughts on this list. Now let's begin. In dead last, of course, it's Aegis. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a run with Aegis in Eclipse 8, and then I give you 6 Weeping Fungus. Then you start sprinting. You still will not see Aegis stack because you need at least 7 fungus. And even then, you get about 1 extra health in barrier every 5 seconds. Aegis is 26. Number 25, to continue the healing theme, is Nukahana's Opinion. I can't lie, the skulls look dope, but you will rarely have enough healing to use this budget little disciple, especially in Eclipse. Number 24, what? Another healing item? Whoa, it's Rejuvenation Rack. Doubling your healing is fine, alright? And in Monsoon, this item is okay. But in Eclipse 8, where the only real healing items are Cautious Slug and Wungus, just get another one of those. Don't waste a red spot for it. Number 23 is Ben's Raincoat. This is helpful for like 4 niche things: Grandparent Son, getting collapsed by a strong enemy in a Void Seed, getting hit by pizza during the Mithrix fight, and like an Imp Overlord's Bleed. However, with this being a red item, only having 4 unique use cases makes it pretty lackluster. However, I will take this red to the moon more than some others since it does have a use. Number 22 is Wake of Vultures. It's a pretty cool concept to steal elite aspects, but the duration is so short, and in Eclipse, this can actively give you less health than when you started, with perfected or overloading elites. So it just doesn't compare to a lot of the other reds on this list. Number 21 is our first true damage legendary with the Resonance Disc. Res Disc is fine. If you get it early game and you have a decent AoE build, it'll shoot out relatively frequently and sometimes kill things. But sometimes, it just misses. And on the moon, it's virtually useless, so scrap it stage 4 or 5 if you can. Number 20 is Happiest Mask. This is actually a pretty fun red. If this list was based purely on entertainment value, it's much higher. Seeing your GUP teammate eventually become 4 GIP teammates brings a smile to my face. But the effectiveness of this item in an actual run is rough. It's helpful for drawing aggro and can sometimes be really fun with boss enemies, but if you get a Grandparent or Dune Strider on your side, good luck not dying to the Sun attack or the Suck attack. Plus, it's another example of a red that does very little on the moon. Number 19 is Soulbound Catalyst. This item is pretty solid. If you find it early in a run, you'll get great use out of it in the middle and late stages, but finding this on stage 4 feels bad. You'll get to use it for 1 stage to help your equipment, assuming you have one that helps, and then on the moon it's almost useless again. But there are some equipments, like Royal Capacitor, which synergize super well. Yes, and also the FMP build, but we have to be realistic. Number 18 is Bottled Chaos. When I did this tier list back in the day, Bottled Chaos took my dead last spot. I've come to realize its full potential as a slightly below average red, with the ability to just do more passive damage, sometimes make you go egg mode, and be able to pillar skip. With equipments with a short cooldown, this can be a pretty fun item, but it's too unreliable to be any higher. Number 17 is the best healing red item. Interstellar Desk Plant is actually pretty solid, even in Eclipse 8. During a teleporter event, you can easily have great healing while standing in 8 to 10 overlapping healing circles the whole time. Once again, this is an example of a red that does almost nothing on the moon, but during a normal run, it can be pretty handy. Number 16 is Frost Relic. I am a big fan of passive damage, and Frost Relic is just that. Passive damage to enemies that dare get too close. It's pretty helpful against imps and Lemurians that try to get in your zone. It can help chunk down a boss, and it helps with Deathmark. It's a decent mid-tier red that'll always feel solid, even if it makes me feel like I'm walking slower because the FOV gets all funky. Number 15 is Brain Stalks. This is another item that I hated unfairly my first time around, and it can actually prove pretty useful. It's another example of an item that's useless for mithrix, but few things feel better than spamming Huntress's Ballista after killing an elite. Later in a run where you need to use more skills, the more elites there will be, and the better the item becomes. On some survivors, you could even consider this a mobility item, as it allows you to spam your movement skill. Number 14 is Laser Scope. This was a weird one to rank, because in some runs it does literally nothing, and in some runs it massively boosts all of your damage. It's completely dependent on your crit, which it gives none of, by the way. Still mad about that. So if you have a few crit glasses, it's solid, but if you have one Harvester Scythe, it's probably worth recycling or scrapping stage 5. Number 13 is Dio's Best Friend. I will explain this very simply. Dio's Best Friend can help you not lose a run, but it can't help you win one. It's pretty rare to see the need to scrap one, as it's a great safety net, but when a legendary chest opens, I'd rather look for something that makes the run easier to win instead of harder to lose. Number 12 is Alien Head. Alien Head defines the word mid to me. Every single time I pick it up, I say the exact same thing. That's fine. Skills are important. Being able to use them 25% more often feels nice, but it isn't going to break a build or win a run. Number 11 is Sentient Meat Hooks. It's passive damage, it's AoE, it's proc chains. What's there not to enjoy about good old smokes? Any survivor can utilize this item well, but proc survivors who you are already building a proc build for can use it even better. Not to mention the fact that it can hook up to 10 enemies on a 20% chance on hit, with every hook having a 0.33 proc coefficient. That's a ton of proc chaos, and therefore a good red. To start off our top 10, we have Pocket ICBM. Now I can understand if you think this is ranked low, but with my luck, every time I find an ICBM, I don't see a single missile for the rest of the run. However, what makes this a top 10 item is what happens when you do find missiles. Plasma Shrimp, ATG, Missile Launcher, and even Fireworks are magical with ICBM. Tripling the damage and the procs that come from them, this probably deserves to be more like number 7 or number 8, but I am bitter that I never find missiles when I have it, so ICBM, just think about that next time I pick you up. Number 9 is Ceremonial Dagger. I rated this way lower on my last list, and I am so sorry. I love the daggers. Just the overall damage and AoE is enough to be good, but having 3 daggers per enemy, each with a proc coefficient of 1.0, makes this item kinda nutty. It's probably a top 5 item, stages 1 through 5, but does minimal work on the moon, so I had to docket some spots for that, but it's still super nice. Number 8 is Shattering Justice. The weird cousin of Scorpion. It's a nice item that feels so satisfying with some survivors, especially Eviscerate Mercenary, or any of the high fire rate survivors like Commando, Multi, Captain, etc. It also provides a solid debuff for Deathmark, and works great on the moon against mithrix. The debuff is temporary and only works for some survivors, so there are other reds that take higher spots. Number 7 is the cool cousin of Justice, the Symbiotic Scorpion. The negatives are similar to Shattering Justice, with burst survivors getting limited use out of it, but the fact that it's permanent gives it the edge. And it stacks further than Shattering Justice, meaning more damage in the long run. It's also significantly better against mithrix because the debuff stays during mithrix jump, so every stack helps until he's dead. It also works on smaller enemies that may die in less than 5 hits. It's a small damage difference, but being able to use it versus not use it gives Scorpion yet another edge on Shattering Justice. Number 6 is 57 Leaf Clover. Back in the day, this was my number 1 item. It might qualify for the most fun red in the game, but after 1,000 hours, it has dropped slightly. Some builds just don't require a clover. If you have a loader run with Bleed, Sticky Bomb, and Tentabobble, sure it helps, but not much. On the other hand, a commando run usually gets sent to the stratosphere with a clover. Proc survivors thrive on proc chains, and clover cranks them up to 11. Even burst survivors do get really good use out of this with 1 ATG. There is essentially no run where I'm not stoked to see a clover. To begin the top 5, we have Unstable Tesla Coil. Did I mention passive damage? No, not yet. Well, Tesla's actually a really great source of passive damage. Just walking around dealing damage 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and creating proc chains is lovely. It's a similar use to Sentient Meat Hook, but it's not a chance on hit, so Loader gets just as much use out of it as Commando. The only downside is that it's super dangerous during Phase 4 Mithrix if you have to get close at all, but just do a Phase 4 skip and you'll be fine. Number 4, we have Hard Light Afterburner. Afterburner, giving you 2 extra uses of your utility skill, is so nice on almost every survivor. And it's only mid on maybe Engineer, Railgunner, and Void Fiend's non-corrupt mode. Usually, this is your movement skill, and with movement being so important, that can be game-changing. Plus, the cooldown gets reduced, so you can spam it even more. This usually makes the Mithrix fight significantly easier, especially if you don't have a feather. Number 3 on our list is Brilliant Behemoth. There's just something about a behemoth that makes it feel overpowered. And I'm talking more overpowered than a 60% damage boost. Being able to hit a few enemies at once with a new source of multiplicative damage is so strong. Every survivor can utilize this equally, and the moment you pick it up, you can feel the difference. It looks cool, it's strong, and it has some really cool nuances with things like Void Crit. Our number 2 red item in Risk of Rain 2 is Head Stompers. This item is so extremely strong. This is also a contender for most fun item because quail jumping to the moon, then crash landing on a soulless control unit one-shotting it with a band feels like I'm cheating. Especially in Eclipse, completely ignoring fall damage is already amazing, but being able to pillar skip with it is simply a cherry on top. Now, the best legendary item in Risk of Rain 2 is, to no one's surprise, spare drone parts. When you pick up drone parts, it's pretty much a free win. The drones are so insanely strong, and with empathy cores, you now have the strongest item combination in the game. As a bonus, engineer turrets can use Drone Man too, so even they get a buff. Drone Man literally allows you to spectate the Mithrix fight, so there's no way it wasn't going to be in our number 1 slot. And that's it. I didn't include Captain's Microbots because obviously you can't actually find this item, so it didn't make sense to rank it compared to the others. But let me know what items you would change. And with all that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you next time.